I've not got enough scientific knowledge, but I have read that climate change has happened over many thousands of years. So how do are we sure it is man-made, or is it not just another climate change as thousands of years ago?
Thank you, Doreen. That's a $54 million question. Is climate change really man-made? It has happened before. How do we know that it's not just part of a natural cycle? And I think I'll start with Robert.
Yeah. Well, I think the difference between the Earth now and thousands of years ago is that we have billions upon billions of human beings on this Earth. We've never been more populated, and it's growing. And I think it is an extremely dangerous and rather naive approach to think that we, billions of people, aren't having an effect upon the planet. Of course we are. We're having an effect every day in everything we do. The decisions that each individual makes have consequences. And therefore I think whilst it is nice to have academic debate about climate change, we are in danger of missing the whole point of what we as human beings owe to our planet. The debate on climate change misses the point in several ways. The need to conserve the environment has always been with us. It's just common sense as far as I'm concerned. Nothing is finite. No resource is infinite, rather. No resource is infinite. And it's sheer good manners and good common sense and humanity to want to conserve what we have. And therefore one can leave the climate change debate to another day, frankly. I don't think we've got the choice, and I don't think we've got the time either to have that debate, which is why I'm glad to say that amongst the main parties and the main countries of the world, there is a consensus that only collective action will do here. The difference is now that we have millions of people who are in danger of starvation and who are fighting for limited resources. So this is a question not of academic debate, but of world survival.
Thank you. And David.
Thanks. I agree with quite a lot of what Robert has said there. I think it's not. I don't take that as being partly political. I take it as actually being just blindingly obvious common sense. There's not a great deal I can add. I think yes, Robert's absolutely right. You know, the number of people on the planet are having an effect on it. I think what's happened since the Industrial Revolution is an acceleration of what has been happening over thousands of years. And I think again, we need to put politics almost to one side and stop being precious about who's the best at doing this and who's got the best policies, and work together to actually deal with the issue now rather than talking about it in talking shops for the next 5, 10, 15 years, and all of a sudden it's got away from us again. I really don't think I can add much more to that.
Okay, and Jenny.
I actually had a discussion. We had another hustings this morning, and I had a nice chat with the other UKIP guy this morning. I drew a little chart for everybody. So I'm sorry if you can't see this, but this is basically the sort of the temperatures that we had pretty much from the year dot on the Earth. They go up and down and up and down in a fairly regular pattern, actually. And this is where the argument comes from. Well, it's happened before, so it's nothing to do with us. Well, what tended to happen in the recent years is that the temperature stabilised, and that's actually where life flourished. You know, that's where we actually, the stable climate actually allowed us to do what we're doing. And that stable climate was between -2 and +2 degrees of where we are now. And it's vitally important that we keep it that way. We can actually learn lessons from the past. When we look at previous ice ages and very hot periods, we can see that the greenhouse gases correspond with those. We can actually learn from the past that the past changes actually prove global warming is happening. And we know full well that when there's been less CO2, etc. in the atmosphere, it's been colder, and when there's been more, it's been hotter. And we know, obviously, if we're putting more in, if we're digging up fossil fuels and putting it back in, then it just makes common sense and logic that the temperatures are going to go up. So it is there. I can understand that sometimes it's confusing, and the graphs do show this, but it has been stable for a long time, and it is definitely our actions that are causing it.
Well, Doreen, I think it is a good question, but I'm in absolutely no doubt that climate change is occurring. I'm privileged to be a member of the Parliamentary Office of Science and Technologies Board, and that the post, as we call it, has been set up because not many parliamentarians are scientists, and post
It has scientists on it, seconded to it or working full-time on issues such as climate change. And another board member is the academic who looked into the East Anglian University email scandal. And I have huge respect for the scientists who serve on our board, as a non-scientist myself, because of the explanation we get and the clarity we get and the absolutely marvellous science underpinning it all. And I believe him when he says that the emails there were errors of judgment in the language that was used, but the science behind it is absolutely rigorous and correct. So that's one thing. I think the science is right. Secondly, I think the evidence in this country and abroad is there. The island states in the world are, they really are fearing that they will be swallowed up by the oceans, and we've seen action by some of the island states' governments to raise the world's understanding of this. And also temperature changes in this country. We've actually had a proper winter this winter for the first time in a long time. But as a keen gardener and horticulturalist, another thing I sit on is the all-party parliamentary group for horticulture and gardening. And it's a very serious group. It sounds like we have fun, and we do have fun. But the important thing that we do there is try to educate people into sustainability and growing their own food. And there's a huge programme that the all-party group has started with the Royal Horticultural Society and children in schools up and down the country, including schools in Swindon joining in. But that group, we have looked again with horticultural scientists at the way gardening and growing seeds and getting your plants out has changed over just the last 10 years. And apart from this year, which has been an exception, earlier and earlier are the last frosts, I'm afraid. And so I think we have got to take it very, very seriously. I'm glad that I belong to a government that has taken it seriously, although I would accept that we were lagging behind the rest of Europe at one point.
Thank you. And Robin?
Going back to the original question, no, we're not certain. And if you listen carefully to all the previous candidates speaking, none of them have stood up and said, yes, definitely it is. Even the IPCC say that only 90%. The IPCC is only 90% certain that it is human action causing the global warming. Now, I'm just going to read something written by some scientists, or rather academics. Writing in the International Journal of Climatology of the Royal Meteorological Society, Professor David H. Douglas of the University of Rochester, Professor John R. Christie of the University of Alabama, and Benjamin D. Pearson, and Professor S. Fred Singer of the University of Virginia, what the observed patterns of temperature changes, fingerprints over the last 30 years, disprove what greenhouse models predict and can be better explained by natural factors such as solar variability. The conclusion is that climate change is unstoppable and cannot be affected or modified by controlling the emission of greenhouse gases such as CO2, as is proposed in current legislation. According to Dr. Douglas, the observed pattern of warming, comparing surface and atmospheric temperature trends, does not show the characteristic fingerprints associated with greenhouse warming. The inescapable conclusion is that human contribution is not significant, and that observed increases in carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases make only a negligible contribution to climate warming. The other thing I want to say about carbon dioxide, in the past, yes, during warm periods we have more CO2, and when it's been cold there's been less, but there's been an 800-year delay of the CO2 following the temperatures. Apart from that, I just feel that the UKIP position is, it's not popular, it's not unproven, and I certainly long if anyone can absolutely prove beyond doubt that this is exactly what's happening. or if we do again see higher temperatures, higher than 1998, but yes, that the actions that are being taken are definitely justified. What has been shown is that a lot of these... Okay.
Yeah.